The woman freezing at that bus stop looked like she had nothing left, but before sunrise, Ethan Walker would learn that kindness sometimes arrives wearing borrowed clothes. Snow drifted sideways across the empty street in Pine Hollow, Nebraska, the kind of early December storm that made even pickup trucks sound quieter as they rolled through town. The old heater inside Ethan Walker's Ford F-150 rattled more than it worked, pushing out little bursts of warm air that disappeared almost as soon as they came. Ethan tightened his grip on the steering wheel and glanced at the clock on the dashboard. 9:14 p.m. too late for a school night, he thought. Lily should have been asleep by now. Instead, his 9-year-old daughter sat bundled beneath a red blanket in the passenger seat, her sketchbook resting against her knees. She had fallen asleep 20 minutes earlier with a blue crayon still tucked between her fingers. Ethan smiled softly. Life had not been gentle with them, but somehow she still drew stars on everything. Stars on lunch bags, stars on homework, stars on old grocery receipts. Maybe children believed light belonged everywhere because they had not yet learned how much darkness the world could hold. The snow thickened as Ethan turned onto Maple Avenue. Streetlights glowed through the white haze like distant lanterns floating in fog. Then he saw her. At first, she looked like part of the storm itself. A woman sitting alone beneath the bus stop shelter, shoulders curled inward, white nurse scrubs visible beneath a long gray coat dusted with snow. No bus came through Pine Hollow after 9. Everyone knew that. Ethan slowed, kept driving for another 20 feet, then stopped. He closed his eyes for a moment. Responsibility had already stretched every inch of his life. Bills, rent, extra shifts repairing heating systems, parent meetings, late-night fevers. He had learned that helping someone often cost more than money. But still he put the truck in reverse. The tires crunched softly over packed snow. Lily stirred. "Daddy?" she whispered sleepily. Ethan nodded toward the shelter. Someone might need help. Lily rubbed her eyes and looked out the window. The woman had lowered her head now. One gloved hand trembled against her sleeve. Lily's small face changed immediately. Children noticed pain faster than adults ever did. Ethan stepped out into the cold. Wind cut across the road, sharp enough to sting his cheeks. As he approached, the woman looked up. She was probably mid-30s. Pale, beautiful in a quiet way, not because of makeup or clothes, but because exhaustion had not erased the dignity in her eyes. "Ma'am," Ethan said gently. "You okay?" She straightened immediately. "I'm fine." Her voice was soft, but careful. Too careful, like someone protecting more than pride. Ethan glanced toward the empty road. "No buses tonight." "I know." Snow settled on her shoulders. Neither moved. Somewhere nearby a church bell rang once. The woman lowered her eyes again. "Please," she said quietly. "Don't call anyone." Ethan frowned slightly. Behind him, the truck door opened. Tiny boots touched the pavement. Lily walked forward holding the red scarf wrapped around her own neck. Without saying a word, she lifted it and held it out. The woman blinked. "Sweetheart, I can't take that." Lily shook her head. "Mom used to say warm people help cold people." Silence settled beneath the shelter. The wind softened. And for the first time since Ethan had arrived, the woman's eyes filled with tears. Neither of them knew it yet, but the nurse sitting beneath those dim lights was not a nurse at all, and the little red scarf in Lily's hands was about to change 3 lives forever. The woman looked down at the red scarf resting in Lily's hands as if it were something far more precious than wool and thread. Snowflakes melted quietly against the fabric. For a long moment, she did not move. Ethan stood a few feet away, giving her space the way people did when they had learned that dignity mattered more than questions. Finally, she reached forward. Her fingers shook slightly as she accepted it. "Thank you," she whispered. Lily smiled in the simple way children did when kindness still felt ordinary. "My name is Lily." The woman hesitated. "Claire," she answered after a pause that seemed too long for such a small question. Ethan noticed it. He noticed everything. Years of raising a daughter alone had turned observation into survival. The careful choice of words, the guarded eyes, the expensive watch hidden beneath her sleeve even though the rest of her looked exhausted. None of it matched. The wind picked up again, sweeping snow across the sidewalk. Claire pulled the scarf closer around her neck. Ethan looked toward the empty street. "You should not stay out here tonight." "I will be fine. You said that 10 minutes ago." She looked away. "I do not have many options." Lily stepped closer. We have soup. Ethan almost laughed. His daughter had never learned hesitation. She offered pieces of her heart the same way other children handed out crayons. Claire lowered her eyes again. I cannot impose. It is chicken noodle, Lily continued seriously. And Daddy burns grilled cheese sometimes, but the soup is safe. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. That is not helping my reputation. For the first time, a small smile touched Claire's face. It was brief, fragile, but it changed something in the air. The church bell rang again somewhere beyond the snow. Ethan glanced at the dark sky. Look, he said quietly. No pressure. Warm house. One night. Tomorrow you can decide whatever comes next. Claire stood very still. Her eyes drifted toward the truck where soft yellow light spilled through the windshield. It was old. The paint had faded. One headlight always seemed dimmer than the other. Nothing about it looked impressive, yet it felt safe in a way she had not expected. She swallowed. Just tonight. Lily clapped once. Ethan opened the passenger door and helped Lily back inside. Claire moved slowly, almost like someone unused to accepting help. When she sat in the back seat, the heater rattled loudly and warm air drifted toward her. She closed her eyes for half a second. Relief crossed her face before disappearing again. The drive home was quiet. Snow covered the fields outside town. Barn lights glowed in the distance. Pine trees bent beneath white branches. Lily turned around in her seat. Do you really work at a hospital? Claire looked surprised. Why do you ask? Lily pointed at the white scrubs beneath the coat. Claire touched the fabric lightly. Something like that. Ethan noticed the answer. Not a lie. Not the truth either. He said nothing. 10 minutes later, the truck rolled into the gravel driveway of a small weathered house, with a porch light still burning. The moment Claire stepped out, she noticed something hanging beside the front door. A wooden sign painted by a child's hand. 3 stars. Uneven lines. Bright blue letters. Home means nobody eats alone. Claire stopped walking. Her eyes lingered there longer than they should have. Inside her coat pocket, her phone vibrated once. Then again. Then a third time. She did not look at it. Somewhere beyond Pine Hollow, people were searching for her. But tonight she stood beneath a porch light outside a modest home where a little girl had offered warmth without asking for anything in return. And for the first time in many years, Claire Whitmore was afraid of something unexpected. She was afraid of needing it. Warm air wrapped around Claire the moment Ethan opened the front door. The house smelled like pine wood, cinnamon, and soup that had stayed too long on low heat. It was not a large place. The living room flowed into the kitchen without walls between them. A worn brown couch sat beside a stone fireplace. Children's drawings covered one corner near the window. Stars again. Blue ones. Gold ones. Some crooked. Some perfect. Claire stood quietly as snow melted from her boots onto the welcome mat. Lily hurried toward the kitchen. I will get bowls. Ethan smiled. 2 bowls. Lily turned. 3. Ethan looked at Claire. She lowered her eyes. Only if you are sure. We are, he said simply. She removed her coat carefully and draped it over a chair. The nurse scrubs beneath still looked too clean for someone stranded in a snowstorm. Ethan noticed, but kept silent. He moved toward the stove. Steam rose softly from a dented pot. The kitchen light cast warm gold across old cabinets that had clearly been painted more than once. Nothing matched. Somehow, everything belonged. Claire sat at the table. Her phone vibrated again inside her pocket. She ignored it. Lily climbed onto her chair across from her. Do you have kids? The question came so quickly Ethan almost dropped a spoon. Claire froze. A shadow crossed her face before she answered. No, Lily nodded. That is okay. My teacher says families do not always start the same way. Ethan looked down at the soup. Claire blinked slowly. Something in her expression softened. Dinner was quiet at first. Spoons. Steam. The crackle of the fireplace. Wind brushing against the windows. Then Lily began talking the way lonely children sometimes did when they finally felt safe enough to fill silence. She spoke about school. About losing a spelling contest by 1 word. About wanting a dog, even though Ethan said no because dogs cost money and ate shoes. Claire laughed softly. The sound surprised even her. Ethan noticed it immediately. It had warmth in it. Real warmth. Not politeness. Across the room, Claire's eyes drifted toward an upright piano standing near the fireplace. A thin layer of dust covered the keys. Beside it sat framed photographs. One picture held Ethan younger, smiling beside a woman with bright eyes and long auburn hair. Lily stood between them holding a sparkler. Claire looked a second too long. Ethan followed her gaze. His voice lowered. That was Emma. Lily rested her spoon. Mom liked music. The room became still. Outside, snow tapped lightly against the glass. Ethan walked toward the piano. His fingers brushed the top without opening it. She used to play every Sunday after church. Claire watched him carefully. And now? Ethan smiled, but it carried years inside it. Now it waits. Lily slid off her chair and disappeared down the hallway. She returned holding a small wooden star painted silver. Mom made this before she got sick. She placed it beside Claire's bowl. You can borrow it tonight. Claire stared at the star as though it weighed far more than wood. Her eyes shone under the kitchen light. She opened her mouth once, closed it again. Finally she whispered, "People do not usually give me things." Lily frowned. That sounds sad. Silence settled over the room. The fire crackled. Somewhere far away a train horn drifted through the winter air. Claire slipped the silver star into her hand, and for the first time in years she felt something unfamiliar move inside her chest. Not admiration, not gratitude, something quieter, something more dangerous. The feeling that perhaps she had spent her whole life building hospitals while forgetting what a home sounded like. Later that night the house grew quiet in the way only winter homes could. The dishwasher hummed softly. The fire had fallen into orange embers. Wind brushed against the porch rails outside like fingers across old wood. Ethan spread fresh blankets over the pull-out couch, while Lily disappeared into her room, carrying the empty soup bowls one at a time because she insisted she was old enough to help. Claire stood near the window holding the silver star Lily had given her. Snow covered the yard now. The swing set behind the house looked like a memory wrapped in white. Ethan stepped beside her. You can take the couch. Lily and I are fine. Claire turned. You have done enough. He shook his head. No such thing tonight. Their eyes met only for a second. Something quiet passed between them. Not romance. Not yet. Recognition maybe. The kind two tired people he shared when life had taken more than it returned. Claire lowered her gaze first. Her phone vibrated again. This time the screen lit through the fabric of her coat pocket. Ethan noticed the glow but said nothing. She stepped away and finally looked. 23 missed calls. 9 messages. 1 marked urgent. Another from her chief of staff. The last simply read, "We have grounded the helicopter. The board meeting is delayed. Please answer." Claire locked the screen immediately. Her heartbeat slowed only after the light disappeared. Behind her, Ethan had already gone back to folding blankets. No questions. No curiosity. Just respect. It unsettled her more than attention ever had. Lily appeared from the hallway wearing oversized pajamas covered in tiny moons. "Daddy, can Claire see Mom's room?" Ethan froze. The question landed softly but carried weight. Lily rarely invited anyone there. The room at the end of the hall had remained almost untouched. Ethan looked at Claire. "Only if you want." Claire hesitated before nodding. The hallway light was dim. Family photographs lined one wall. Birthdays. School fairs. One picture showed Ethan holding a newborn Lily while Emma laughed beside them. At the end stood a white door decorated with faded blue stars. Lily pushed it open. The room smelled faintly of lavender even now. A sewing basket sat near the window. Half-finished fabric rested beside it. Claire walked slowly inside. On the dresser stood a notebook. Lily picked it up carefully. Mom wrote songs. Claire looked toward the piano in the living room again. Did she finish them? Lily shook her head. Daddy says some songs stay unfinished because people leave before the music does. Silence filled the room. Claire swallowed hard. She had sat in boardrooms worth hundreds of millions of dollars. She had negotiated acquisitions, closed hospitals, open clinics. Yet nothing in those rooms had prepared her for a little girl speaking about grief with that much grace. Suddenly, her phone vibrated again. Louder this time. Lily looked down. Ethan appeared in the doorway. Claire stepped back quickly and silenced it. The screen flashed for half a second before going dark. Ethan saw only 3 words. Whitmore Executive Office. He said nothing. His face never changed. But something shifted quietly behind his eyes. Claire slipped the phone away. Work? Lily asked. Claire nodded. Something like that. Lily smiled sleepily. You should take tomorrow off. Ethan almost laughed. Claire looked at her. I do not think my job works that way. Lily yawned. Maybe it should. The room fell quiet again. Outside, snow drifted past the window in slow silver lines. Claire stood among unfinished songs, old photographs, and the memory of a woman she had never met. For the first time in years, she wondered whether success had made her powerful or simply very good at hiding how lonely she was. The house finally settled after midnight. Lily had fallen asleep with her stuffed rabbit tucked beneath one arm and a crayon still resting beside her pillow. Ethan checked on her twice the way he always did, standing quietly in the doorway as though love itself were a form of guarding. Claire watched from the living room without meaning to. The fireplace had gone soft. Now, orange light breathing across the stone. She sat alone on the pull-out couch with the silver star in her hand. Her phone rested beside her, silent for the first time all evening. Ethan returned carrying 2 mugs. Chamomile, he said. It is not fancy. Claire accepted it carefully. Tonight fancy sounds exhausting. He smiled. The sound of wind drifted through the chimney. Somewhere outside a branch scraped lightly against the porch roof. They sat in silence for a while. Not awkward silence. The kind that happened when neither person felt the need to perform. Claire wrapped both hands around the mug. You check on her every night? Ethan looked toward the hallway. Every night. Even now. Especially now. Claire studied him. Because of what happened to your wife. Ethan lowered his eyes. The question should have felt heavy. Strangely, it did not. Emma got sick when Lily was 6. His voice stayed calm. The doctors tried everything. She fought harder than anyone I have ever known. Claire listened without moving. After she passed, he continued quietly. Lily stopped sleeping through the night for months. She thought if she fell asleep, people disappeared. The fire crackled once. Claire looked down at her tea. And you? Ethan smiled faintly. I stayed awake with her. Silence returned. Soft. Honest. Claire felt something tighten in her chest. She had spent years inside hospitals. She knew machines, schedules, statistics. She knew what loss looked like on paper. Yet somehow this small house explained grief better than every board presentation she had ever seen. Ethan leaned back. Your turn. Claire looked up. My turn. Everybody who sits by that fireplace ends up telling the truth eventually. She almost laughed. Is that a house rule? More like a tradition. Claire stared into the steam rising from her mug. Outside the window, snow continued falling over Pine Hollow. White fields, quiet roads, a town small enough to forget and somehow impossible to ignore. My mother died when I was young, she said finally. Ethan said nothing. Hospital shortage. Long wait times. Staff stretched too thin. Her fingers tightened around the cup. After that I decided no family should hear the words we heard. Ethan watched her carefully. So you became a nurse? Claire hesitated. Something like that. Not a lie again. Not the truth either. Ethan noticed. He always noticed. But he did not push. That kindness felt dangerous now. Because kindness left room for honesty. Claire stood and walked toward the piano. Dust still covered the keys. She touched one lightly. A soft note echoed through the room. Ethan looked up. Emma used to play that chord before every song. Claire turned. Why did you stop? Ethan took longer to answer this time. Because some rooms feel emptier when music ends. The words settled quietly between them. Claire looked at the piano. The photographs. The handmade stars. The couch where she would sleep. Her world was built from glass towers and executive floors and private flights waiting on command. Yet none of those places had ever felt this human. She slipped the silver star into her coat pocket. Not because she planned to keep it forever. Because tonight she was afraid to let it go. And somewhere deep beneath years of success and carefully built walls, Claire Whitmore realized something unsettling. She did not want morning to come. Morning arrived quietly over Pine Hollow. Snow still covered the fields beyond Ethan's house, turning fences and rooftops into soft white lines beneath a pale winter sky. The coffee maker hissed in the kitchen. Bacon crackled gently in the pan. Lily sat at the table wearing mismatched socks and drawing another page full of stars. Claire stood near the window with a mug between her hands. She had slept only a few hours. Not because the couch was uncomfortable. Because peace had become unfamiliar. Ethan moved around the kitchen with the practiced rhythm of someone who had learned to do everything twice. Pack lunches. Tie scarves. Remember school forms. Carry grief without letting a child feel its weight. Claire watched him longer than she meant to. You do this every morning? She asked quietly. Ethan slid pancakes onto a plate. More or less. Lily looked up. Daddy makes Saturday pancakes on Wednesdays too if life feels sad. Ethan sighed dramatically. That was Classified information. Claire smiled. Real this time. Warm enough that Ethan noticed immediately. Before anyone could speak again, a distant sound rolled across the morning air. Low. Mechanical. Unfamiliar. Ethan frowned. Pine Hollow did not wake up to engines like that. Lily hurried to the window first. Her eyes widened. Daddy. Ethan walked over. The gravel road leading to the house was lined with black vehicles. One after another. Large sport utility vehicles with dark windows moving slowly through the snow. Behind them came a silver sedan. Everything stopped at the edge of the driveway. Silence followed. Even the coffee maker seemed louder. Claire went still. The color drained from her face. Ethan looked at her once. Said nothing. Car doors opened. Men and women stepped out wearing long coats despite the cold. Professional. Focused. One woman with silver hair hurried forward holding a tablet against her chest. The moment she reached the porch, she stopped. Her eyes landed on Claire. Relief flooded her expression. Miss Whitmore. The room became completely silent. Lily blinked. Ethan did not move. Claire closed her eyes briefly. The woman continued speaking quickly. We have been searching all night. The board delayed the emergency session. St. Catherine expansion is frozen. 3 hospitals are waiting for approval. Everyone is asking where you are. Lily turned slowly. Claire. Her voice was small now. Claire knelt beside her. I need to tell you something. Ethan stood near the doorway. Calm. Quiet. The same way he had been from the beginning. No anger. No accusation. Just stillness. Claire looked at him before speaking. My full name is Claire Whitmore. Lily frowned. Like the hospital in Omaha? Claire nodded once. Yes. Ethan lowered his eyes for a second. Pieces settled into place now. The phone calls. The executive office message. The careful answers. None of it surprised him anymore. Outside, more staff waited beside the vehicles. Inside the little kitchen, the world suddenly felt too small for the truth standing in it. Lily looked between them. You are the boss lady? Claire almost laughed through the sadness in her eyes. Something like that. Lily stepped closer. Then why were you alone at the bus stop? Silence returned. Snow drifted past the window. Claire swallowed. She had faced reporters, investors, senators. Yet that question from a child left her defenseless. Ethan finally spoke. His voice stayed gentle. Lily. But Claire lifted a hand slightly. No, she whispered. She deserves the answer. She looked down at the little girl wearing moon pajamas and holding a blue crayon. Because sometimes people with everything still end up cold. No one moved after that. Outside, the engines waited. Inside the house, something far quieter happened. Ethan Walker realized the woman who had slept beneath his roof owned more hospitals than he had ever seen in his life. And Claire Whitmore realized the man standing by the kitchen doorway possessed something money had never once been able to buy. The kitchen remained quiet long after the last word faded. Outside, the line of black vehicles stood against the snow like pieces from another world. Inside, the scent of coffee and pancakes still hung in the air as though ordinary life had not just collided with something much larger. Claire rose slowly. The woman with silver hair stepped forward again. The board is waiting, Miss Whitmore. Omaha General, St. Catherine, and the Rural Expansion Committee are all delayed. Claire nodded but did not move toward the door. Her eyes drifted back to Lily, who still held the blue crayon in one hand. Will you come back? Lily asked suddenly. The room became still again. Claire opened her mouth. No answer came. Ethan stepped in quietly. Lily. But his daughter only looked at Claire. You forgot your star. She reached across the table and picked up the little silver ornament Claire had left beside her coffee mug. Claire took it carefully. Her fingers closed around it, as if it were something breakable. Thank you, she whispered. Ethan walked her to the porch. Snow crunched beneath their boots. Staff members waited several yards away, respectfully distant now. Claire stood beside the railing where the paint had begun to peel from winter weather. You knew, she said softly. Ethan looked toward the fields. Not exactly. But you suspected. He nodded once. Enough to know there was more. She smiled faintly. You never asked. Ethan slipped his hands into his coat pockets. People tell the truth when they feel safe. I figured you would when you were ready. Claire lowered her eyes. Somewhere behind them a vehicle door closed. The wind carried the smell of pine and cold air. I would like to repay you. Ethan shook his head immediately. No, Ethan. No, she looked up. He finally met her eyes. You were cold. We had soup. His voice stayed calm. That is not a debt. Something in Claire's expression shifted. Respect. Maybe something deeper. Before she could answer, the silver-haired woman approached again. Miss Whitmore, the helicopter is waiting in Omaha. Ethan frowned slightly. Helicopter. Lily had been right after all. Boss lady. Claire turned back toward him. There is a board meeting tomorrow afternoon. Ethan looked confused. Okay. Come with me. He blinked. What? Bring Lily. Claire. Please. The word surprised both of them. She continued before courage disappeared. We are opening funding discussions for rural clinics. I want you to see what we are building. Ethan hesitated. I fix heating systems. You also stayed awake with your daughter after losing your wife. Her voice softened. You understand care better than most executives I know. Silence stretched between them. Snow drifted from the porch roof in soft white powder. Inside the house, Lily pressed her face against the window watching. Ethan finally nodded once. We will think about it. Claire smiled. It was small, honest, almost relieved. She stepped toward the waiting vehicles, then stopped, turned back. For what it is worth, she said quietly. Last night was the first time in years I slept without checking my phone. Ethan said nothing. He only gave the slight smile people carried when they had survived enough to value peace. Claire climbed into the sedan. Engines started one by one. The convoy moved slowly down the road until the last black vehicle disappeared behind the trees. Lily ran onto the porch the second it was gone. Daddy. Ethan looked down. Yes. She held up her drawing from breakfast. 3 stars now instead of 2. 1 large, 1 small, 1 new. I think our family picture changed. Ethan looked at the paper. The winter wind moved softly through the empty driveway. And somewhere many miles away inside a black sedan, Claire Whitmore sat with a silver star in her hand, wondering why leaving that little house felt strangely like loss. 3 days passed after the convoy left Pine Hollow. Snow still covered the fields, but the sky had cleared into the pale blue winter color Ethan always liked. Life returned to its ordinary rhythm. School drop-offs, service calls, packed lunches, evenings by the fireplace. Yet something had changed. The silver star was gone from the shelf because Claire had taken it. Lily noticed every day. She never mentioned it out loud. On Friday morning, Ethan stood on a ladder repairing a heating unit inside Miller Hardware when his phone rang. Pine Hollow Elementary. He answered immediately. His expression changed before the call even ended. 10 minutes later, his truck was cutting through town faster than usual. Lily sat in the nurse's office wrapped in a blanket, pale and quiet. The school nurse smiled gently when Ethan arrived. She is okay, she said quickly. Just lightheaded and exhausted. Ethan knelt beside his daughter. Hey, star girl. Lily tried to smile. I am fine. He touched her forehead. Too warm. Not dangerous. Just enough to wake old fears. Fear had memory. It remembered hospital hallways. Empty chairs. Waiting rooms that smelled like coffee and hope running out. Ethan swallowed quietly. We are going home. The nurse hesitated. Mr. Walker, I think she should get checked. Nothing alarming. Just to be safe. Safe. The word stayed with him all afternoon. By evening, Lily was sleeping on the couch beneath her red blanket. Ethan sat nearby pretending to read estimates for work. He had not turned a page in 20 minutes. The house felt different tonight. Too quiet. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Hello. Ethan. He froze. Claire. Her voice carried the same calm warmth, though something beneath it sounded tired. How did you know this number? He asked softly. You wrote it. On the emergency contact form Lily left in her backpack. Ethan looked toward the couch. You still have that. Silence. Then quietly, yes. He lowered his eyes. Lily got sick today. Claire did not speak for a second. Is she all right? Probably. Probably. The word felt small. Fragile. Claire heard it too. Which clinic? Ethan blinked. What? Where are you taking her? Claire. His voice gentled immediately. No, this is not charity. I know. Then let me help. Ethan stood and walked toward the window. Snow drifted outside beneath the porch light. I cannot do that. Why? He took longer to answer than she expected. Because once people like me accept help from people like you, he said quietly, the world starts calling it gratitude instead of dignity. Silence. Deep silence. Claire closed her eyes on the other end of the line. Somewhere behind her, board members were leaving a conference room in Omaha. Glass walls. City lights. Expensive suits. None of it mattered now. Ethan, she said softly. The night you found me, I was cold and alone. Her voice lowered. You helped me anyway. He said nothing. Please do not take away my chance to do the same. Across the room, Lily stirred beneath the blanket. Half asleep, she whispered one word into the quiet house. Claire. Ethan turned immediately. His daughter opened her eyes only halfway. Did she call? Ethan looked at the phone in his hand. Yes. Lily smiled weakly. Tell her I still saved her seat. The room became still. Ethan swallowed. On the other end, Claire had heard every word. Neither spoke. Outside, snow continued falling over Pine Hollow. Inside, two people from different worlds stood surrounded by silence. Realizing that somewhere between soup, stars, and unfinished songs, they had both stopped pretending the other no longer mattered. Snow fell again on the Sunday before Christmas. Pine Hollow looked softer beneath the white sky, as if winter had wrapped the town in quiet on purpose. Lily felt better now. The clinic visit had brought relief instead of fear. Rest, warm meals, and less excitement, the doctor had said with a smile. Ethan had nodded, even though fathers like him rarely rested. That afternoon, he stood in the living room untangling old lights while Lily sat beside the fireplace making paper stars. One chair remained empty at the table. It always did during Christmas. Ethan never moved it. Lily never asked him to. Some absences became part of the furniture. A knock came at the door. Ethan looked up. Lily froze. The second knock was softer. He opened it. Claire stood on the porch wearing a long cream coat dusted with snow. No convoy. No black vehicles. No assistants. Just her. In one hand, she carried a small box tied with blue ribbon. In the other was the silver star. Ethan said nothing for a moment. Claire smiled carefully. I took the day off. Lily appeared behind him. Her face lit up immediately. You came. Claire knelt. I did. Lily hugged her before anyone could stop it. Claire closed her eyes. Her arms wrapped around the little girl slowly, like someone holding something precious and unexpected. Inside, the house welcomed her the same way it had the first night. Firelight. Pine scent. The quiet music of ordinary things. Claire placed the box beneath the tree. For Lily. Ethan looked uncomfortable already. Claire noticed. It is books, she said quickly. Not expensive ones. Just stories. Lily gasped as if books were treasure. Maybe they were. Evening settled gently around them. Snow touched the windows. Dinner filled the house with warmth. At some point, Lily disappeared and returned carrying 3 paper stars. She placed one before Ethan, one before Claire, one in the empty chair. Claire looked at it. Who was that for? Lily smiled softly. Mom. Silence followed. The good kind. The kind that made people lower their voices without being asked. Ethan looked down. Claire reached into her coat pocket and placed the silver star beside the paper one. Then she should have 2. Ethan lifted his eyes slowly. Claire met them. No speeches. No promises. Just grace. Later that night, Lily yawned and climbed onto the couch. Claire. Yes. Remember when I said I saved your seat? Claire nodded. Lily pointed toward the empty place at the table. It does not look empty anymore. The room went still. Fire crackled softly. Outside, snow drifted through the dark Nebraska night. Ethan looked at the chair that had stayed untouched for years. Then at Claire. She sat quietly beside the little girl who had offered her a scarf at a bus stop and changed everything without knowing it. Claire's eyes glistened, but she smiled anyway. Ethan finally spoke. His voice was low, steady, full of the kind of dignity that never needed attention. You do not have to leave tonight. Claire looked at him. The world outside was large. Boardrooms, hospitals, headlines, expectations. Yet somehow the invitation from a small house in Pine Hollow felt bigger than all of it. Lily had already fallen asleep with her head resting against Claire's shoulder. Claire brushed a strand of hair from the child's face and whispered the answer almost to herself. I think I would like to stay. The fire burned lower. 3 stars rested on the table. One for memory, one for hope, one for the miracle that arrived quietly and asked for nothing except a place to belong.